Ankita Robin and welcome to SG Global News. From 30 cloistered nuns who went missing after being evicted from their monasteries in the middle of the night by the Nicaraguan dictatorship to the tragic plane crash in Washington, D.C. that left at least 30 dead, we have many stories to cover. Envoys of the Nicaraguan dictatorship forcibly evicted 30 cloistered nuns from their convents in Managua and Shenandoah at midnight on January 28th. The nuns were only allowed to leave with a handful of their possessions. Catholics in Nicaragua and around the world are prayerfully awaiting news about these nuns whose whereabouts remain unknown. On January 28th, envoys of the Nicaraguan dictatorship forcefully entered the monasteries of the Order of the Saint Clare or the Poor Clares in Managua and Shenandoah. An ecclesiastical authority, speaking to local media, reported that the envoys first notified the sisters at the monastery of the Franciscan Clarissan Sisters in Managua before proceeding to the monastery of the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary in Shenandoah. The nuns were then ordered to leave the monasteries, allowed to take only a few of their belongings. Nicaraguan lawyer, human rights activist, and author of the report Nicaragua, a Persecuted Church, Martha Patricia Molina, described the incident as a night of terror. In a post on X, she highlighted the plight of the nuns, stating that they were permitted to leave with only a handful of their possessions. The whereabouts of the nuns, most of whom are Nicaraguan, remain unknown. Molina further noted that the legal status of the congregation, which was officially recognized in February 2004, was arbitrarily revoked on May 19, 2023. The Nicaraguan dictatorship under the leadership of co-presidents Daniel Ortega and his wife Rosario Murillo has been systematically suppressing the Catholic Church in the country. According to the latest edition of Nicaragua, a Persecuted Church, the number of attacks against the Catholic Church is nearing 1,000. Several Catholic clergy and religious figures have been exiled, Catholic organizations, educational institutions and seminaries have been shut down, and religious sisters have been forcibly expelled from the country by the repressive Nicaraguan regime. Republican Senators Tim Scott and James Lankford have introduced a new bill aimed at safeguarding parents' rights to direct the upbringing, education, and health care of their children. The bill seeks to restore parental authority, which in recent years has been eroded by government policies promoting ideological material in schools. In a bid to protect children from LGBTQ curricula in classrooms, Republican members of Congress have introduced a bill aimed at safeguarding parents' rights to direct the upbringing, education, and health care of their children. Last Thursday, Republican Senators Tim Scott and James Lankford introduced the Families' Rights and Responsibilities Act, which seeks to limit government intervention in parental decisions regarding their children. During a press conference, Scott stated that the bill's goal is to establish a test to scrutinize whether legislation or executive orders concerning children's welfare infringe upon parental rights. If enacted, the bill would reaffirm the fundamental rights of parents to oversee their children's upbringing while preventing the federal government from substantially interfering with these rights. The bill includes an exception for cases where a parental action or decision would result in physical injury to the child or end life. Additionally, the legislation would allow parents to take legal action at the federal or state level if they believe their rights are being violated. The bill comes at a time when parents are increasingly being targeted for voicing concerns over LGBT-focused curricula in schools. Representative Virginia Fox, a co-sponsor of the bill, stated, quote, "Parents deserve to raise their children without the looming threat of government infringement," end quote. The bill also grants parents the right to seek legal recourse if schools fail to inform them of their child's social transition to another gender. The legislation follows President Donald Trump's declaration that restoring sanity is a key objective of his second term. Pro-life activists from Virginia gathered in Richmond on Wednesday to celebrate Virginia Pro-Life Day. Attendees visited their legislator's office, urging them to stand up for life, concluding the day with a Holy Eucharistic celebration at St. Peter Pro-Cathedral in downtown Richmond. Hundreds of pro-life advocates gathered in Richmond on January 29th for Virginia Pro-Life Day. The Diocese of Richmond posted on X, quote, "Today was a beautiful testament of faith and devotion to making Virginia a pro-life state," end quote. The attendees, grouped into various advocacy teams, visited their legislator's office to meet with their senators and members of the House of Delegates to let them know they hope to see them pass legislation to uphold and defend the dignity of every human life. The event also aimed to support pro-life members of the General Assembly and encourage those who voted against pro-life bills in the past to reconsider their views. The House of Delegates is soon to introduce bills that will attempt to enshrine a constitutional right to abortion in Virginia. To facilitate the meetings, the organizers provided talking points, legislative updates, and tips for effective advocacy. The participants also had the opportunity to visit the galleries in the General Assembly building. After a morning of advocating for the unborn, Bishop Barry C. Nestout celebrated Mass at St. Peter Pro Cathedral in downtown Richmond. The 2025 Virginia March for Life will take place on April 2, 2025. Trump's nominee for Health and Human Services Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a former Democrat and a longtime advocate for abortion rights, affirmed his commitment to protecting life during the Senate confirmation hearing on Wednesday. He pledged to implement Trump's policies, including ending late-term abortions, protecting conscience exemptions, and stopping federal funding for abortions, both domestically and abroad. During his confirmation hearing on Wednesday, Trump's nominee for Health and Human Services Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., told the Senate that every abortion is a tragedy. He asserted that the United States cannot be a moral nation while 1.2 million abortions occur annually.
I agree with President Trump that every abortion is a tragedy. I agree with him that we cannot be a moral nation if we have 1.2 million abortions a year. I agree with him that the states should control abortion. President Trump has told me that he wants to end late-term abortions, and he wants to protect conscience exemptions, and that he wants to end federal funding for abortions here or abroad. That's Title X. I serve at the pleasure of the president. I'm going to implement his policy.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a former Democrat, has historically supported women's right to choose. However, during the hearing, he aligned himself with President Trump's stance on abortion. When questioned by Republican Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma about his position on the issue, Kennedy stated that he agrees with President Trump that abortion laws should be determined at the state level. He further remarked, quote, "President Trump has told me that he wants to end late-term abortions, protect conscience exemptions, and stop federal funding for abortions both domestically and abroad," end quote. As someone serving at the president's pleasure, Kennedy affirmed that he would implement Trump's policies. Kennedy had initially run against Trump in the presidential race, but suspended his campaign in August and subsequently endorsed Trump. His endorsement helped unify two political factions and contributed momentum to Trump's election victory. Many pro-life Americans had expressed concerns over Kennedy's past pro-choice views following his nomination to lead HHS. However, his remarks during the confirmation hearing appeared to have reassured them. A U.S. military Black Hawk helicopter collided with an American Airlines regional jet carrying 64 passengers near Ronald Reagan International Airport on Wednesday night. Both the aircrafts plunged into the Potomac River. So far, 30 bodies have been recovered and rescue operations continue for the remaining passengers. A regional jet of American Airlines carrying 60 passengers collided with a military Black Hawk helicopter near Ronald Reagan International Airport outside Washington, D.C. on Wednesday night. Federal aviation authorities said the bombardier operating as American Airlines Flight AA5342 had departed from Wichita, Kansas and struck a single-passenger Sikorsky H-60 helicopter mid-air while descending for landing. After the collision, both aircraft plunged into the Potomac River, which typically records sub-zero temperatures. Rescuers fear that the chances of survival for the remaining passengers are extremely low, as some bodies may have been carried deeper into the water. President Donald Trump, who lives barely 5 kilometers from the accident site, announced via Truth Social that he had been fully briefed on the situation. That's all for today. Until we meet again, God bless and thank you.